Just as we have the callouts and zoom and pan as important functionality in Camtasia, there is one more major functionality that we want to spend some time on, and that's called the visual properties. Again, we have a tab down here, and if you've lost it, you may show the transitions. It would show up in here. If I bring the transitions up, it's hidden, and right now I'm bringing it back up and we have it as a tab right here. The Visual Properties tab has a lot of functionality. We have the add animation, we have some general settings, positioning settings, and then we have some visual effects. So there's quite a bit to cover here. I'm going to give you a practical application a little bit later, but for now I just want to take you through the functionality of how this works. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into my clip bin and I'm going to get that cute kitty cat and put it randomly somewhere on my timeline where it has no purpose being, but it will serve us well as showing what we can do with it. And the first thing we can do is we can scale our kitty cat. Right now it's scaled to 32%. If I wanted to have it at 100%, it was a very large image. We would only see part of that kitty cat. So I'm going to bring this down to maybe 20%, or maybe a little bit bigger, 25%. And I also have the ability to make that cat or any image less opaque. So I can bring it in very gently, and if you look here, we can just see a vague shadow of that cat, or I can bring it back to full 100% opacity. Those two things are something you will be using quite a bit. You can also scale your cat by going on the corner and just changing the size, and as I do that, you can see on the scale here that the number actually changes. The position, at first it of course came in perfectly centered, and I can change the position by moving the numbers here. If I were to put it to 90, if I were to put that to 50, we can see the cat is moving around, and we can also move it around this way. So you have an X, a Y, and a Z axis you can move it by. However, I find it easier for the positioning itself most times. Just dragging, clicking on it and dragging the object around is a much easier way of doing it, and you can see in the positioning now that the numbers are actually changing. In the same token, I can also rotate my cat by clicking in here, and I can just turn it upside down or give it a good rotation, and you can see that the numbers are changing in my Z-axis rotation here as well. So I'm just going to bring this back to 0. We can also rotate around the Y-axis. I'm going to just give it a 45-degree rotation, or even a 90-degree rotation, or a 120-degree rotation. This can give you some really neat visual effects. Just going to bring this back to 0, just so we keep going with the functionality. And we have the X-axis rotation as well, which we can set to 30 degrees, 100 degrees, and you can see our cat keeps happily rotating. It's clearly a Nancy cat. It has a lot to do. And then we have the visual effects, so we can add a drop shadow to our cat. We can add a bigger drop shadow to our cat, which we can blur a little bit more, and we can give it lesser opacity. Probably give it some. So those are things you can also work with. Probably a little bit too much distance for that particular cat. So we can just go like that. And now our cat has a nice drop shadow attached to it. I'm just going to remove that drop shadow. You can also colorize the cat. There we go. Now we have an orange tabby. To do that, you simply choose any color, and that color is being added to that image you have chosen. And you can change the amount. So sometimes you just need to warm something up, and sometimes you want to have a bright effect. So depending on what you're trying to achieve, that colorization visual effect can come in very, very handy. I'm just going to move that off again. You can also add a border to it. You can have a thickness around it. As you can see, now we have a border. I haven't seen a ton of use for this particular function, but I can see how it could come in handy from time to time. And then we have the last function, which is called remove a color, and I can go and pick any color in my cat and just go ahead and remove it. Obviously that's a very strong color. That's a lot in here, but I can just bring this down. And there's a tolerance, so we can almost make the cat disappear. There's a softness and a hue and a defringe. And this is a section we will spend a lot of time on in a later segment of this course, and that's where we talk about removing the green screen, the green background you just see on the video. That's something we're going to remove later, and this is actually the exact spot you're going to do it. I'm just going to bring our cat back to life here. And that's an overview of how you can use the Visual Properties tab. And in a moment, I'll actually going to give you again a practical application for that in our sample video.